where I come from, about as much as how well you live. I used to have this friend named Jimmy Bartlett who got his legs broken over something his great-grandparents did just because he shared their last name. The house that Jimmy grew up in was brought under false pretenses in 1869 from a local family, the Carmichaels, for the price of a horse and $200. And when the Carmichaels realized that they'd been taken, it was too late, and the local courts were obligated to side with the Bartletts because a contract had been signed. Nobody ever forgot about it. Nearly 100 years later, when Jimmy Bartlett was walking home to school, or was walking to school one morning, a gang of the Carmichael kids jumped him with bats and just pummeled the living hell out of him. He was 9 years old. He never walked the same after that, and the funny thing was, he never even blamed the Carmichaels for what happened. It's just one of those things. Me, I can't imagine not wanting to get some kind of revenge, but then I never had that kind of problem. I was named after Atlanta's favorite son, a Confederate soldier who was wounded and captured during the battles of Gettysburg. My great-granddad. The story goes that Henry Gray Turner, upon capture, was held in a secret federal prison in Ohio. This is true, by the way. Where he was kept in solitary confinement and tortured daily by Union thugs who were trying to squeeze out information on Robert E. Lee. But Captain Turner didn't talk, and at the close of the war, they were forced to cut him loose. He came back to Georgia with the pride of the South in his heart, and he decided to get his revenge through politics. And sure enough, the 2nd District elected him as their representative under the 47th United States Congress. He served 8 consecutive terms. Also true, by the way. First thing he did when he got to the House floor was declare the Turner name to be a curse upon all who had opposed secession, and that the great state of Georgia would remain free and independent of the tyrannical Lincoln grasp for as long as he served his constituents. And I quote, "God forgive any bastard that believes otherwise." Georgia repaid the kindness by naming a county after him, Turner County, that I talked about a second ago. Once he retired from politics, he married Lavinia Calhoun Morton, and they settled outside Atlanta into a big plantation house where they had their only son, Gus. They lived happily in that house for 5 years until one day, a man walked through the front door, went up the stairs into the bedroom where Lavinia and Henry were sleeping, pulled out a Derringer pistol, which is the same gun that was used to kill Abraham Lincoln, and shot them both in the head. Whether it was robbery or politically motivated, nobody will ever know, but it meant that Gus Turner, my granddad, was now a ward of the state. He grew up an orphan, and though he didn't much like to talk about his childhood, he told me this much. "A lot of folks talk about forgiving them that harmed you, in the way I see it, Henry, that's God's job. I ain't about to give the bastards that raised me a free ride to heaven." Forgiveness ain't an inherent human quality, he believed, nor should it be accepted, or expected, rather. And that was that. Gus was a welder and a true Southern drinker and a storyteller that raised my mama by himself, and then took care of her after she got pregnant with a stranger's baby. Never met the father, and as far as I know, Mama never really did either. I sure did. For my grandfather's part, he never once gave her trouble about that. Just let it be. Went about his daily business at the shop, his night business at the house, so long as he was allowed his drink. So, here's the important thing to take out of all this. That I got a real distinguished family history. And whenever I feel too bad about everything that went wrong, it's nice to remember that I got stuff to be proud of, things that other people don't have. Some folks got dishonorable blood, like Jimmy Bartlett, but the Turners have been doing significant things from the start. Even me. I was born on an August day that broke records. The way Ma would tell the story, you would have thought it was hell on earth, and the first time I heard about it was when I was about 6 years old in the middle of summer, and she'd been riding my ass to get in the backyard to weed out the garden. But Mama, I said, it's too hot to be out there gardening. Too hot. Lord, I better not hear you talk about too hot ever again, not after what I went through to have you. The day you were born was the hottest day ever recorded in the city of Atlanta. So hot that more than 50 folks died from the heat in the city limits alone. That's true, 1959, more than 50 people died just from the heat. It was a heat wave, a lot like the heat wave this summer where a lot of people just died from the weather and not from any, outside circumstances. Folks can die from the heat, Mom. Mostly old folks and homeless, Henry. You don't worry about that. Can you imagine them dying like a crab in a steamboat? She paused and wiped the sweat from her forehead. The day was August 23rd, 1959. which was a Sunday. You weren't supposed to arrive for another month at the very least, and so me and your granddad were in the front yard working on the wreck of a tractor that the neighbor Levi Johnson had run into the ground. And Lord, it was so hot that when my water broke, your grandfather couldn't tell it from the sweat on my back. To be honest, I couldn't barely tell neither, so it wasn't much of an emergency, at least at first. Foreshadowing. We called my cousin Ricky, seeing because he was the only one we knew with an automobile that worked. This old Ford truck that he brought back to life on at least 3 separate occasions. And he drove over a couple hours later, and me and your grandfather hopped in. So it was supposed to only be about a 20-minute ride to the hospital from where we were at, the big one that was downtown, but we didn't take into account the traffic and the construction. And that's when the contractions started. Boy, I didn't know what to expect, but I'll tell you this much, he fought harder than your sister, and when Lila was born, it was like a picnic compared to me. So there I was, in labor, just sitting completely still. Ricky's idling truck in 100-degree downtown heat, waiting for the construction workers to flag us through when we see the workers take off their helmet and sit down on the pavement and start eating their lunch. Just called it quits right there in the middle of the day. Your grandfather grumbled something like, God, forgive these hands of mine because they're about to sin. And he gets out of the truck and he walks over to the construction workers. He doesn't say a thing. He just socks one of them in the gut as hard as he can, and a big fight breaks out. And right there in the middle of the street, your grandfather's swinging, the workers are screaming, and then out of nowhere the cops arrive. First thing they do is take a billy club to your grandfather's back, and on instinct he turns around and he breaks the cop's nose. There's blood gushing down the cop's face, and everybody's screaming and fighting, and Ricky just turns to me and he shrugs. Now I've got tears coming down my face from the pain, but we both look at each other and start laughing like maniacs, loud and hard, like we ain't never laughed before at the whole ridiculous scene that was going on. Ricky puts his truck into gear. He drives around the whole mess of people fighting, through the construction zone, right over the hospital, where the nurses rushed me right into the delivery room. A few hours later, you were born. Took a cesarean section to get you out. We got a call at the hospital from the precinct saying that they charged your grandpa with disorderly conduct and assault, but they let him go 2 days later with time served when they found out what the fight had been about. The funny thing is, to this day, there's still a big crater in the street where those construction workers have been. The boys never did fix that hole. That's it. Thank you. Matthew's going to go next. If you want to just go and do it right now, or do we want to take a break?
Do it.